So hello everyone, welcome to ACSI 2022. So pretty much today we're going to be learning about the introduction to coding, right? And one way to do this is by using MIT AI2, which is pretty much an easy software to use. It's called MIT App Inventor. And since you guys are beginners, I'm going to be showing you how to do this. So let's get started. Let me share my screen to you guys. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So let's get started. So let's first talk about what programming really is, right? So pretty much programming is a way where the computer reads a code you write, and this will make math, or this will make life for humans in general. Humans pretty much, they use this in order to uh, find like math formulas or like get answers to math formulas, which pretty much makes everything easier for pretty much everyone as a whole. So why MIT App Inventor, right? MIT App Inventor, even though it's for beginners, it has a lot of tools that we can use and easy for anyone to understand. Additionally, this is also a very, very powerful app, and it's like very powerful. But one thing that this uses is block coding, right? So this makes it easier for people to know where to set each type of code so they can easily understand what is being done and what is being processed. Daniel, please stop me if you have any questions. Are you fine with that? Do you understand everything?
Yeah.
All right, sure. So getting started with MIT App Inventor. Danielle, so can you please follow the instructions? I want you to type in this URL. Tell me when you do so. Let me know when you do. And this is for everyone that's looking at the recording. Also, be sure to follow these steps.
I did.
Okay, on the upper left-hand corner, do you see something called Create Apps?
Yeah.
So click on that and sign in. Tell me when you do so.
I did that.
You did that? Okay, now agree to terms of service. Now you can click on continue.
Yep.
Start a blank project.
What do I name it?
Name it sci_lesson_1. If you don't, you can do the same thing also if you'd like to.
Okay, and what now?
You named it?
Yeah.
So keep this aside. We're gonna come back to this later when I actually teach you later on how to build like a small code. So we're gonna build like a calculator later on. So we'll come back to this then.
Okay.
Got it. So let's understand what the designer mode is, right? So pretty much designer mode is where you can design your code. It's pretty much straightforward. You'll be able to see all your components, but I'm gonna actually take you through what each component is used for, such as the palette, viewer, components, and properties. So what is a palette, right? So these are where you can see your tools and all, such as your button, checkbox, or like what you're gonna use to put into your code and organize this stuff. We'll go into this later on in more detail, but it's just an introduction to it. Viewer. Danielle, do you have any questions so far?
No.
Okay, so viewer, this is pretty much where you'll be able to view what the actual user is seeing. So for example, it will give you, in this example, MIT App Inventor, it gives you a phone screen, right? And using this, you'll be able to see, like if you click the multiplication symbol or whatever we'll do for the calculator when we build it later on, you'll be able to see exactly. So in case there's a mistake or something, you'll be able to fix it using the tools you'll be given. So now let's look at what the components in media is, right? So pretty much the components in media is where you can like upload certain files or sound or whatever you'll need when you're building your app. So for example, let me give you an example. So let's say you're trying to build an alarm, right? You'll need a certain type of sound for that, correct? And pretty much this is where you'll be able to upload the certain types of sound, such as a ringer, or let's say, for example, in your code, you need a video, right? And in the video, you need a static noise that you want to add. This is where you'll be able to do it. And that's why this components and media section is very, very useful. So the property section. So property section are pretty much where you'll be able to like control what the viewer sees. So for example, if you want to change the color or if you want to change the background or alignment or whatnot, this is where you'll be able to do it. It will normally be on the right side of the screen. And I'll show you this as we look through the thing. So the blocks mode. Block mode, this is pretty much where you'll be able to pretty much build your you'll be able to build your code together. This is actually very important because this is where the functionalities start. So it is very, very important that you know where each functionality is. So for example, if you want to do the math section, it's color coded in MIT. App Inventor. So in this situation, it'll be the blue section, the darker blue section. And there's different properties in here, such as variables or dictionaries. So when you use this MIT App Inventor, make sure you know where each section is. Does that make sense? We're good with everything, right, Daniel?
I think he said yes.
Yes, okay. Now let's look at what the blocks are, right? So for example, there's control or logic or whatever, right? This is pretty much where you'll be able to set certain conditions for your code, right? So for example, if you want to say when this or if then, right? You need to be able to set this is where you'll be able to set certain conditions for when your code will work. For example, if you want to click or start or whatever, this is where you'll be able to see this. So make sure you understand how or where each functionality works here and how it can correlate into your actual device that you're going to be making or app. So the blocks viewer, right? Pretty much over here, MIT App Inventor, you're given these three main blocks. So for example, over here, you're given the zoom in, zoom out feature, or it shows you warnings if you're making if code's going wrong anywhere, it gives you a warning. So you'll be able to see errors. So pretty much just help you if your code is going wrong, navigation, if you're doing everything right. Also show you how to like copy and paste since you're going to need to use the same code sometimes over again. And this will be perfect for that because it will allow you to easily be able to take your code from one place to another. Stop me if you have any questions, Daniel, since it's very important that you understand this. And for everyone following along this video, make sure you really understand and you can come to office hours if you need more help. So these are some of the additional resources for MIT App Inventor. If you need more help on how to use MIT App Inventor or whatnot, Danielle, make sure you go to this website. It will show you more resources such as how to use if then or how to use while or how to use like how to evaluate or so on. So this is perfect for helping out with that aspect. So now we're gonna actually like create an app. So this is the hello world. This is where we'll actually create the app at this point. So once you actually create your app, you always want to test it out on your own device, right, Daniel? So if you want to actually test it out on your own device, you're going to want to use something called an emulator, right? So you're going to have to first download this app emulator onto your device. But the next thing is when you actually use the emulator into your actual device, you have to make sure they're both on the same Wi-Fi or network or it will not work. So that is very important. And people make a lot of mistakes when they're actually trying to test it, since usually they're not on the same network. And because of this, the emulator will most likely not work. So how to contact, to make the emulator, this is the link you'll be using. So as you can see, there's like different ways to actually use the emulator, and pretty much just click on one of these if you want to know how to use it once you actually make your app. Any questions here? So now we want to know what event handlers are, right? So event handlers are pretty much define how the app pretty much define how the app responds to like certain functions, right? So for example, in this situation, let's say you click button 1 in this instance, right? This should be a certain like outcome based off of what you click here. And like clicking button 1 is the action that should be done. So the event or what's going to be done is what you enter in this event handler. And it's important that you understand, since you're going to be making a bunch of blocks together, right? So make sure you really understand what the event handler does in this situation. So for this situation, it puts the world hello world onto the text by clicking button 1, which is action. This is important to know. Daniel, do you have any questions about this? Sorry, did you say something, Danielle?
Danny, your mic is really soft, but I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Okay, I guess we'll go on. So commands and expressions, right? So pretty much like I said here, by putting in a command or your input you're coming in, there should be an output that comes out or the expression that comes out, right? So for this example, you're setting label 1 and then you want the text to come out as hello world. So pretty much it's simple to understand. Input values have output values, and you really need to like understand what goes on here. Object properties, right? So like what you saw in the beginning, here you have the opportunity to really design the objects to however you want. So for example, for the objects here, you'll be able to change your background color to whatever you want, right? So for this example, you'll be able to change your background color to blue, or uh, you have all these things such as aligning screen or background image or whatever you like to whatever you want to see. Variables. So now here variables are like pretty important. So for example, let's say you want to put a plus b equals 10, right? So for variables, you want to enter a as 7 and b as 3. So this example, as you can see, because you're entering in values for the variables in order to give you your answer to equal to 10. So for example, if the user wants to know how many times they actually click the button or how many times the button has been clicked, such as like button 1, right? You want to store how many times the user clicked the button. So this is where variables come in. Pretty much you need variables in order to store how many times the user clicked button 1. Does that make sense, Daniel and Vedant? Do you get it? That makes sense. Okay. So now there's like many different types of variables, right?
Well,
So,
Daniel wants to explain further on that on the previous slide.
oh, on the previous side, right? So for example, what I'm trying to say here is that let's say you want to, like I explained before, right? A plus B equals 10, right, Daniel? But you need values for what A are, and you need values for what B are. So for example, if you enter in 7 for the value A and 3 for the value B, these are what the variables are. So for example, in coding terms, right? Let's say you want to know how many times someone clicks a button, like button 1, right? You want to know how many times they click that button. This is where you'll need variables because it counts how many times they click the button. So for example, you need variables in order to store data. So for this example, you're pretty much the value that's coming out is hello. And if you want to see how many times the hello comes out, you need variables in order to count or track the number of times. Does that make sense, Daniel?
He said, yeah.
You said, yep. Okay. Perfect. So there are also many different types of variables, right? So in MIT App Inventor, if you want to set variables throughout all your blocks, you would have to use a global chain, right? So for example, um, if you want a variable to come, or if you want a variable to like repeat many times throughout your whole code, this is where you'd use a global chain, right? However, if you want your code to only like repeat once or your variable to increase once, you'd only use the local. So for example, if you read this, Daniel, global is like access to anywhere on the screen. So initialize global count, you'll have that access to anywhere on the screen. The user will be able to see that anywhere on the screen. However, for local access, you'll be able to see declared or when you put certain commands, it'll only be in individual areas. Daniel, does that make sense?
He said yes.
Okay. Also, let me okay, yeah. So let me see like why is coding used, right? And this thing like for basic math operations, right? What this is why coding is pretty much used. It makes it easier, like I said in the beginning, it makes it easier for humans to do simple tasks. In this instance, we're going to be talking about math. Easier ways to do math instead of humans actually doing the calculations in their hand. This makes it really hard for them to do. However, MIT App Inventor, it allows humans to like introduce themselves to this field. It makes it very, very easy for people first trying to learn code to be able to utilize utilize this and be able to make a calculator, which we will do. Daniel, does that make sense? It's pretty much why coding is used in basic math operations.
Yep. You
Sounds
understand.
good. Yeah, you understand. So now we're going to talk about order being important, right? So at first, in when you just read this, right, you see the blocks act as parentheses and they determine which operation is being completed first, right? But commands in a command block are carried out in order from top to bottom. But let's put this into simpler terms for you to understand. So the roles of blocks in this instance, the roles are backed if we blocked if we correlate it into math, they act like parentheses and they play the same role. Whereas commands in this instance, it's like PEMDAS. They carry out the operation from top to bottom. So like it reads it from top to bottom, but also if there are two operations right next to each other, MIT App Inventor specifically would read them from left to right. So that is very important that you understand when we put together code later today. Daniel, does that make sense? Like pretty much summarizing how order is important, how they would come together. Also, I'll leave
He
some
said yeah.
time. Yeah. If the people that are watching this video, if you guys want to take notes, I'll leave some time. Like I'll give you guys a 10 seconds after each slide. I already can't do so much to really take some notes. Okay, now let's talk about event handlers, okay? Event handlers are pretty much events that are for like certain actions. So for example, in MIT App Inventor, you would set certain tasks such as setting a timer up. And this is one of the plethora a reasons you would use event handlers, but it just sets certain correlations for each other. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Now we'll go through a walkthrough. But first, I want to show you guys how to use this MIT App Inventor. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yep.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me show you guys. So I already created this in the past, but I'm just going to show you what each section is, right? So here you'll be able to see your layout and all that, right? So for example, here when I had a horizontal arrangement over here, I had to drag and drop this layout to be over here. So I was able to get a horizontal. And for the calculate section, I also added the clear button and everything. I want you to understand over here, if you look on the top right corner, it says designer and blocks. Design is where we can get into specific, change how the viewer sees things and add certain buttons and all, right? So for example, if we want to add buttons, we pretty much just click here, drag and drop buttons into where we pretty much want to add the buttons, right? And if we look at the properties side of the properties screen, this is pretty much like I explained before, where you'll be able to change like your colors and all. If you have any questions in here, Daniel, tell me if you have any questions on what each is. I'm just going to real quickly show you what the blocks are, right? So this is pretty much where you'll have access to see where all the blocks are. You'll be able to change or add math, like certain decimals or whatever you want. You'll pretty much have access to all the buttons. We'll go into this later, but make sure whenever you want to like add certain functions, like let's say for this addition sign, go to designer, click on plus, and when you click on this plus, it tells you which button it is. Then from there, you can go into App Inventor or to go into the block section, and then you can make certain functions for this. Does that make sense?
Yep.
For more clear specification so you really understand, because you don't want to mess up normally when you're doing code. I'm just going to quickly explain what this initialize global number 1 to 0 and initialize global number 2 to 0 means. So pretty much when we're trying to create a calculator and we enter 2 variables in, we don't want it to start with a variable as 1 or 2, because then the whole calculation is going to be wrong, right, Daniel? So we want the starting values to always be 0. So it's important that you go through each logical step of taking a calculator, since the computer doesn't know what the number is, right? You need to program it to put it as 0 in this instance. So that's how you would do this. Got it? Also, if you feel like if you did something wrong and you want to scratch something away, which we will use when I actually teach you.
No, can you do that again? Can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, so pretty much what I'm trying to say is initialize global number 1 to 0 and initialize global number 2 to 0. What does this mean? What I mean by this is that when we enter, so for example, let me go to the designer. When we enter for screen 1 this or screen 2 this, we can't enter the variable in as it can't start. The starting variable can't be 2. The starting variable can't be 1. When you enter numbers like 4 plus 4, right? You want the number to be 4, like, and the starting value here has to be 0, 0. So for example, if I said the starting value Peter blocks to be 1, right? And we want to do 4 plus 4, that would make it 5 plus 5. Does that make sense, Daniel? And it's going to make the whole calculator section wrong.
Yep.
Yep.
We also have 10 minutes left on the meeting.
Yeah, okay. Tell me when there's like 2 minutes left so I can make another Zoom for you.
All right.
Daniel, do you understand that?
Yeah, he said yes.
Okay. And pretty much images are where you'll be able to, like I said, create images and all that good stuff. That makes sense. Buttons, let's do buttons over here. Let's do the roles of each button. each button will be able to see, like you see multiplication, subtraction, addition, division. Each one has a whole role. And when you go into the block section, you'll be able to give each of it a role. So for example, button 1 over here, right? This button 1 correlates to addition, right? So what am I doing for addition? I pretty much I'm giving it the property of adding two numbers together, and I'm setting the label. The label is pretty much the answer or the outcome of what you enter in. So pretty much I'm giving it an answer or something to enter in. Button 3. Let's look into button 3. So button 3 in this instance, right, is pretty much, oops, designer. Button 3 in this instance is subtraction. So when we do subtraction, let's see, I pretty much, as you can see over here, I added the subtraction symbol, right? So the two numbers you're putting in together, so this textbook 1 would be the first number you're putting in, and text box 2 would be the second number you're entering in. They would subtract each other, and the outcome of it, or the answer, which was label 1 in this instance, would pretty much be the outcome. So as you can see here, do this. So this is pretty much the input and output, and all code pretty much utilizes this. Button 4. Here in this instance, it's a multiplication, but always you want to double check. So I click on multiplying, which is this symbol, and you can see it's button 4. Then you can go into your block section. You can put in whatever you want. So for button 4, if one, click this, or when, click this. Button 4, you want to make sure, and then you can check the text box, text, or whatever you want. Let's move on. Let's see what else. Finally, button 5, right? Button 5 in this instance is the division symbol. Okay, Daniel. In the division symbol, pretty much button 5, you get the dividing symbol. So you take your first input, which is text box 1, and then you text, and then you get your second input, which is text box 2, and then text. And then when you divide them together, you should get your output, which would be label 1. Label 1, you can see, is over here. This is where you'd add your text for label 1, which I can probably make answer. That probably makes it easier for you to see. So label 1 is the answer or the outcome that comes up. Okay, Danielle, do you have any other questions before we actually get into actually building?
Nope.
Okay, real quick, I want to show you, 1 second. Okay, actually, no, we're not going to mess with the height or anything, since I feel like this is a good format for y'all to look at. Layout's pretty important. How you want layout's pretty much how you want it to look like. So for example, I personalize mine to be horizontal, like I stated before, and pretty much you'll be changing background color or whatever to what you like. To the people watching this video, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to catch up and take notes. You guys should really take notes and follow the steps before we actually get into building the app. So now I'll take here about, say, a 3-minute break here for everyone to catch up and take notes before we're back.
After the break, you should create a new link.
Yeah, after the break, we'll create a new tab. So I guess we'll give everyone 5 minutes to really understand, take notes. I'll also go through all the slides again if you all want to look at the slides. I'll go slowly by each one. Daniel, I highly recommend you to take notes here so you can reference back to it later. Sorry, as I mute. This is an important slide, so I'm going to stay on this slide for longer, so y'all, whoever listens to this video, can follow the steps. Danielle, let me know when I can continue, since you're taking notes for each slide, so I can speed up the process a little bit. When this Zoom recording or Zoom meeting ends, I'll send one in approximately two or 3 minutes, because I'm going to switch computers so I can save this recording. So make sure you check the Discord, Daniel and Vidal. It's important you understand where these blocks come up. It's on the top right-hand corner. You see designer and blocks. Click on the block section to access the blocks here. The blocks mode, Danielle, take note of that. It's in the top right-hand corner of the MIT App Inventor. So let me share my screen. Danielle, can you see?
I
Vidal,
can see. I can see.
Okay. Now we're gonna actually start creating the app, Danielle. Vidal, do you want to get to the screen also? So if he has any questions, you can tell him.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Do you need to see that on how to get here again, or did you follow the
No,
instructions?
I got it.
Okay. Daniel, are you here on the screen? Daniel?
Daniel, you can use the chat if your mic is not working. I see you're unmuting and all.
Yeah, tell me what he says in the chat, Vedant, since I
Yeah,
can.
he's got here.
Okay, you got it. Okay, we'll wait for Vedant to get here, and everyone that's
Yeah,
watching.
I'm here.
Everyone that's watching, if you're here, we'll begin now. Pretty much the first thing what we're gonna do, first thing, is we need a place to enter in our two variables, right? So if we need to add two numbers together, we need a place to add the two numbers together, like 4 + 4. And to do that, we have to enter in two text boxes. Daniel, click on text boxes here and drag it here. Did you do that? And do that for the second one also and drag it right below.
Yep, he did.
Okay. Now what do you want to do? You want to see the addition, you want to see subtraction, you want to see multiplication, you want to see division, right? You want all these aspects, right? And to do that, you need to take operations. And if you want to do that, click on layout first. Do you see layout?
Yep, he did.
Once you do that, drag horizontal arrangement, the first thing over here. Make sure you do this correctly since it's very important that you do this. Tell me when you do that.
Yep, he did.
Okay, now what we want to do is to, again, click on user interface, but now we want to add buttons, okay? So let's say we want to do addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication, right, Danielle? So those are 4 different operations that we want to do. So we take out button 1, we put it here inside this box, okay? Put it inside the last box. Then drag another button and put it in the box again for button 2. Then drag a third button, put it inside the box for button 3, and then drag the 4th button and put it inside the box for button 4. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Rename each one. So if we click on button 1 here, and you look down over here where it says text, can you see over here?
Yep.
Rename the first one to addition. So you can just put the addition symbol here, then click enter. Let's change to addition. See that?
Yep.
Second one, click on button 4 for me. It can be different for you, but rename the second one to subtraction. Enter. Then for button 3, you do the same thing. You rename it to multiplication. So I'm just going to put an X here for multiplying. And the 4th one, I want to put a division symbol. So I'm just going to put this as dividing and click enter. Tell me, Daniel, when you're all caught up on that, because this is important.
Yep.
Okay, you have that. Now what we're going to do is, where's the answer going to be? So over here, do you see where the answer is going to come out anywhere? Because this is the input, it's the output, it's our operation. There's no place where the answer comes out, right? And that is where you get label and drag it right above this if you want. Does that make sense? And tell me when you all
Yep.
All right. Did Daniel do that also?
Yeah. I'm not just saying what he said.
Okay. Now we're gonna go to blocks. And now for everyone, this is where we start to design. So get ready. First thing what we're gonna do is let's go back to, if we're gonna do button 1, right? So let's click when you click button 1. So that's what it means, and drag and drop it over here. When you do that, so what is button 1, right? Since in math, you can do many different equaling, plus, minus, multiplying, whatever. So you want to know what the operation is for button 1. And like I explained before, go back to designer, click on button 1 so you know what it is. And clearly for button 1, it says addition, right? So that's what the operation for addition is going to be. So go back to blocks and you want to set label. So click on label 1, right? Because label 1 is the answer. You go to label 1 and set label 1 text is equal to. So this is where the answer comes out. drag and drop it and make sure it fits in here, Daniel. Tell me when Daniel does that. So you have to set label 1, and to do that, click on label 1 here, and then you can drag and look for label 1.
Yep, you do.
So this is the answer, this is the outcome, right? But clearly we looked here and we saw that button 1 was addition, right? So we need a place to add our addition symbol. So we can click on math here and built in. Scroll and look for this addition symbol. It's the 4th one. So take this addition symbol and add it into here. Did you do that, Daniel?
Yep.
Okay. Now what we want to do? We want to set text box 1, right? Text box 1, we go back in the designer section, is this text box, right? And text box 2 is this one right here, right? This is where we're going to be entering our variables in, such as 4 and maybe 3 here, right? So text box 1, if we want to enter in 4, we can go back to the block section, click on text box 1, scroll down, and you see here text box 1 text, and then drop that into the first section. Here you see how it highlights the yellow first section? Drop that into there. Tell me when you do that.
Yep.
You do that? And now we entered in our first variable in, right? But we still need to enter in our second variable also. If to do that, click on text box 2. Now we look for the same thing to enter in the text box 2 text, such as 4. We go down and we see it right here, right? Take that and drop it in.
Yep.
Have that. Okay, now we have our addition done, right? So now I can't really show you how the app emulator works since you need to download it, and I can't really screen share my phone and all that, but I can show you guys that later. But pretty much when you, Daniel, if you later after this lesson decide to download the app emulator, your addition symbol should be working. But that's not it, Daniel. We have 3 more operations to do: subtraction, multiplying, and dividing, right? So we go on blocks and we do the same thing. Do you want to do subtraction, multiplying, or dividing now, Daniel? Choose one. Which one does you want to do?
Subtraction.
It's just subtraction. So let's go back here in Designer and click on subtraction. Tell me when you do that.
Yep.
And now you see subtraction. For me, it correlates to button 4, but for you it can be different, right?
It is button 4.
Okay, so button 4. So now you go into blocks. Look for the same thing. Scroll down to button 4 here. And you look for when, oh, sorry, not here. Okay, this is actually easier for you to do, Daniel, instead of doing all this. Click on this, just this button here. You click on that?
Yep.
Okay, click on this. Click Command C or Control C to whatever you're doing. I was showing you these resources before, that's why it was important to pay attention. If you just click Control C and then click Control V, you can just copy and paste it over here, right? But we don't need the rest of this right now or actually we need this portion. For this one, it's a subtraction. It's not addition, so we can just delete all of these blocks. And make sure you change this to button 4 because we're on button 4, which is subtraction. Do you understand, Daniel?
Yep.
So are you all caught up to here, Daniel? Is you all caught up? Okay.
Yep.
Now we set label 1, which is the answer. Same thing. We only have one label 1, which is the answer over here. We want to add our text boxes, input and output. But remember, number 4 correlates to subtraction, right? So we're going to go back in blocks, click on math, then look for the subtraction symbol, drag, and drop that here. Do you do that?
Yep.
And now here we can do the same thing. Text box 1 is still the same, which is over here. This is still text box 1. This is still text box 2. So we can just copy this. This is an important resource to use. Paste it over here, and then we can just drag and drop it into the left side, and to do the same thing for the second one, since we're still using text box 2. Copy, paste, drag, and drop it onto here.
Yep, you do.
Okay. Daniel, so now what's the next thing you want to do?
Multiplication.
Okay. I want you to try doing this yourself, Daniel. See how you can do this. So let me know first. See with it, and then I'll tell you if you did it the right way.
Okay. Yeah, no, his multiplication is button 2, not button 3. That doesn't really matter. You just need to make sure that your code has button 2 instead of his code having button 3. Okay.
If you want, I can switch it around.
Yeah, you can switch it if it's confusing.
It's multiplication is button 2 for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just change it for him. Okay, now mine should be the same as you. Daniel, try doing this yourself. We'll give you guys some time, and when you finish, just let me know.
Okay. Wait, Daniel, are you done already, or? Oh, he did. He is done.
Oh, he's done. So for everyone else wanting to do multiplication now, how you do this is click on multiplication again. You see it correlates to button 2. You go back to blocks. You can, as you can see, copy paste is very important because as I showed you in the resources section, is something that you can use. Delete the second section since we're trying to do multiplication, not subtraction. So we can delete that section. And this correlates to button 2, right? It's button 2 multiplication. So make sure you change it to button 2. Now that you do that, you want multiplication, right? So you can click on math, look for the multiplication symbol, which is right here, drag, and drop it here. Same thing like I said before. Text box 1 and text box 2 correlate to here and here. So if you want to enter in your values there, you can just copy here, paste, here, paste. Daniel, also, this is just from multiplying, right? But if you want to make longer code, let's say you want to create like the quadratic formula, which we can assign you and we highly suggest you to do this homework. You pretty much have to look for like PEMDAS, right? Left to right, top to bottom, right? So the first thing in the quadratic formula is negative b, right? So you go from negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2 or whatever, right? You want to follow the PEMDAS rules and correlate it into this, right? This is very addition and subtraction. But for example, let's say if you want to start off with addition in your quadratic, right? Make sure, or subtraction in your quadratic equation, right? Make sure your subtraction is the first thing that you do, and then you can follow whatever the PEMDAS rules are. Does that make sense, Daniel? And you can come to office hours if you need help doing this. So make sure you utilize these opportunities, Daniel. And this is for everyone else that's watching. Last thing we want to do is division, right? So for division, we want to do button 3, right? We see it correlates to button 3. So same thing, go back to blocks. Daniel's probably ahead of us. So we'll quickly do it. Make this into button 3, like I said before. However, button 3 is division, right? So we can just delete this. But the reason why this stays the same is because this is the answer. Label 1 is where your answer or the output comes out, right? Then you can go back into math, look for the division symbol, which is right here. Is everyone caught up?
Yep.
Control C, because you still want the inputs to be the same in the same place, because you're not adding more text boxes, but you can if you want to, but we're probably not going to do this. This is your first time coding here in block coding. And here you should have your answer. Daniel, later if you want to use the app emulator and you want to try it on your smartphone also, you can download the app emulator, but I can't really show you that since I can't screen share my phone and all that. But that's what you can do in order to test it out and see if it's working on your phone.
Yep.
Daniel, do you have any other questions?
No, he doesn't. I do want to say something. So, and usually in coding, they would name their variables like
Yeah.
things that they can identify. So
Here,
yeah, you can do
here
that.
I just named it x minus plus, but to make it more organized, like I said,
Yeah.
you can enable the label one, like here, label one, right? Like I showed you this before also, but you can click on label one and name it like insert or whatnot, right? So now you
No,
have
no. Also for the buttons as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
even for buttons, you can just name it to however you want to make it easier. Like there's a rename button here. You can just rename it to whatever you want using this app, MIT App Inventor.
Yep. I got it.
Vedant, so for homework, we're gonna have him.
Do the square. Sorry, the quadratic formula.
Yeah. So for homework, we're gonna have you do the quadratic formula. Do you have any questions about this, Daniel? And Vedant, you can answer his questions if he has anything over here.
Okay.
We want you to like pretty much create a quadratic formula, follow the rules, and make sure it comes out using the same thing we showed you, except it'll be a little bit harder.
The parenthesis is very important in this part.
Yeah.
I think Daniel, you're good, right?
Daniel, we really want you to utilize this program. So if you
Okay.
have
Oh yeah. Do you want us to put the screenshot, like a screenshot of this on Discord?
yeah, we can put Vedant, can you take a screenshot of this and
Yeah, I got that.
homework? And yeah, we don't have this. If you have any questions, please come to office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays, Daniel. We can really help you and you can take full advantage of this program. This is for everyone that's watching the video also. You put the screenshot there. And can you, Vedant, can you also put the office hours for Tuesday and Thursday? You can come if you need help.
Yeah, okay. I think Raghav already did that, but that's what.
You can put it underneath the homework. Then
Okay.
make sure everyone finishes this.
Okay.
Yeah. I also quickly want to go over what like each part are like since I just scratched the surface of creating the calculator, right? But there's so many other things I can do. So you can say if this equation is true, for example, if you're talking if this equation is true, right? Then you can create that, then control, then something else will happen. So you could say if this equation is true, then something else will happen. So for example, when you create the quadratic formula, you want to, or actually no, this won't be for quadratic formulas, but you're pretty much setting conditions. And conditions is very important in coding because when you set conditions, you want them to be right. And if the conditions aren't met, you can't proceed with the code. So make sure this conditions you're setting are right. If not, your code will not work.
Yep. Wait, did you see that? Did you just answer that? Sorry. You
No,
said where would you put the false and true?
yeah, you false and truth in this, like you wouldn't technically use it for like you wouldn't use it for this calculator, but if you ever use it, maybe not for quadratic equation, but if you want to create some other code, you can you can put it like for like in quadratic, you probably will need to use it also because quadratic, you're following the rules, PEMDAS rules on what to do first. Like you wouldn't do the plus or minus part first, right? Whatever's in the square root part, or like when you're multiplying, you would do that first. So make sure, like I said in the slides before, things frozen, but like I said, let's see, where was that? Order is important. This part, order is important. So the blocks like you do act as parentheses and determines which operation is first. And commands are carried out in order from top to bottom. So make sure you do that correctly. And does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, do we have anything else to cover? Vedant, if you have anything to like elaborate on, like do you want to elaborate on anything in App Inventor, or like for example, elaborate on how to use the variables or text boxes or whatever? I would suggest such as for creating the quadratic equation, so we can give them a little bit help for doing that.
Let me think. No, I think you covered most of the stuff on here.
Or Daniel, if you have any questions,
Yeah, if you have questions,
put it in the chat, since the quadratic formula is a lot harder than what we just did over here, and Vedant can answer your questions.
I think, Daniel, you know the quadratic formula and stuff like that, correct? Okay. He said he would try and come to office hours if he needs to.
All right. So thank you for coming, Danielle, and we're probably gonna end this session over here, and we'll see you guys in the next section.
Okay. Well, yeah, next section is Wednesday, correct?
Yeah, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So next section should be on the 20th, Danielle, so make sure you're here at the same time.
Okay.
This session was just an introduction, so there wasn't as much content, but when you learn other stuff, there's gonna be a lot more content and it'll be longer, so make sure you're prepared to stay for a longer time for everyone next time. And next section, try to take notes so you can look back at it if you need help when doing your homework.
Also, like, if you have any time outside, just, tinker with it. Or
yeah, tinker with it, try playing
more.
Because Daniel, have you done science fair before? For anyone watching, done science fair? This is useful. You can try this in science fair, especially if you're in elementary.
He said no.
Yeah, you can use this maybe in science for elementary, middle schooler, but you'll learn more content later on, which you can use for science fair.
The more exposure you get to this.
Yeah, more exposure is better.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no more questions, we'll see you, Danielle. Thanks for joining the session. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.
Okay, we'll end the session here also.